Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're talking about the 8th episode of Masters of the Universe Revelation. This episode largely focuses on Evil-Lyn. It dives into her backstory that was explored in the comic, although it's an abridged version, but they seem to be ignoring Skeletor's backstory, which is a bit confusing. In fact, Skeletor's pretty one note, still obsessing over Adam and how he was able to use the power of Grayskull despite not having the sword anymore. Most of the episode is just people standing around and talking, which is a little boring in an action show. Teela also feel like she had an incomplete character arc. She basically did a 180 from the first half of the show, now being surprisingly forgiving towards Adam and having a completely different view on magic. It just doesn't feel natural. They still heap a bunch of praise and validation onto her though, while simultaneously throwing shade at Adam. It's just really frustrating how little the first half of this series actually mattered, especially given what they did with Evil-Lyn's character. She ends up becoming extremely nihilistic, to the point where she even destroys Preternia. We'll get to that. But what did she even learn from her journey across the afterlife in the first half of the show? They were bragging a lot about how proud they were of Evil-Lyn's story, but they really butchered her character. She went from being an ambitious and conniving sorceress to being totally subservient to Skeletor and needs to be liberated from him. I think Evil-Lyn deserved better, and so did the audience. This episode begins where the last one left off. Adam has powered down from Savage He-Man. He explains to his dad that Teela brought him back, but that's not exactly true. He chose to come back, but the king thanks her for bringing his son home. Then they have this big I'm sorry party, which feels really insincere since there was no build up to it. She apologizes for leaving, but he says she had every right to turn her back on Eternos. I'm not sure I would go that far. She can be upset, but she turned her back on her kingdom, her career, and her whole life. At the worst moment, the planet was dying, and when the world needed her the most, she decided to go off and be a judgy mercenary for money. That was pretty messed up. Then he ends up throwing shade at Adam, saying that so many truths were kept from her and him. Adam ends up apologizing for keeping the secret, even though he never wanted to keep it, but then his dad apologizes for not saying he was proud of him more. And all of this apologizing just sounds really fake. The whole first part of this show was these characters throwing temper tantrums, and now it's like they're just moving on because the plot demands it, not because they came to any natural realizations or character growth. The only one I can believe is actually sorry is Adam, because he never wanted to keep this secret in the first place. Anyway, King Randor is introduced to Andra, and he says he'll give her anything she asks for as thanks for helping bring his son back. She says the only thing she wants is a home, since she's been alone ever since her grandfather died. So King Randor makes her a lieutenant in the army, so she can stay at the encampment. I actually think this is a nice moment for Andra, since she doesn't get to do much in this series. The Queen comes in, and she's over the moon to see Adam. Adam is happy that his family is reunited, except for Adora, but I guess we don't talk about her. But there appears to be tension between the king and queen. I feel like they got Alicia Silverstone to play Queen Marlena just so she could reprise her role as Cher from the movie Clueless. This doesn't feel like the queen at all. She says things like as if and my butt. I get it's Alicia Silverstone, and they want some kind of celebrity factor for the cast, but this is also supposed to be Masters of the Universe. Marlena is an actual character who's basically been erased so they can make a reference. As if is an iconic Cher line, but not Queen Marlena. Meanwhile, Duncan is in the dungeon, comforting the Orlax, which we still don't get any information on. It's just here. But they seem like they're on better terms now. Duncan ends up trying to comfort it by touching his tentacle. I don't know why he would do that, because it's gross. But also in the comic, coming in contact with its slime is going to knock you out and put you in a coma. But the show seems to have forgotten about that, just like most of the other stuff that was in the tie-in comics. Then Evil-Lyn comes in to mock him and kick him while he's down. She goes on about how he was once the most dangerous man in Eternia, but now he seems so impotent. I'm pretty sure the only reason why she held him back is because she thought he was hot. Duncan turns the situation around on her, claiming she's the one who's lost all of her power because she is now totally subservient to Skeletor, despite the fact that as the sorceress, she should be above him. He also calls her out for bullying the Orlax, since she forces it to suffer in a show of power, but he says she's just lashing out because Skeletor is bullying her, and that everybody in the dungeon knows about it, and they even pity her. She eventually leaves without causing any more harm, but it definitely didn't end up being the power trip she was hoping for. Guess Man-at-Arms isn't as defeated as she thought. Back in the Mystic Mountains, Adam and his mother have a heart-to-heart. She explains that after he passed away, they ended up separating. The king blamed her because she knew Adam's secret, and it ended up being too much for the both of them. Things might be different now that Adam is back though. He feels guilty, blaming himself for what happened, because a bunch of stuff in this episode is just piling on top of Adam. Marlena tells him it's not his fault though, and sometimes people just fall apart. Meanwhile in Castle Grayskull, Skeletor keeps hogging the window he made for Evil-Lyn. I guess it was one of those presents that was more for him than her, but she doesn't seem to care that much. She's actually annoyed that that's basically all he does, as he's trying to find an answer for how Adam could use the power of Grayskull without the sword. But what else is there to do aside from harass the prisoners? Skeletor invites her to look after he sees her judging him, and he shows her the universe, and of course goes on a big spiel about how he's gonna give it a makeover with the power of Grayskull. But seeing this makes Evil-Lyn have an existential crisis where she freaks out about the universe being empty and how life is meaningless with no design. It's all very nihilistic. Skeletor pulls her out of the window and then scolds her for looking too much into the void, but he's the one who showed it to her. Not that I would expect him to take responsibility for his own actions. He's just annoying. She continues to make fun of him for being obsessed with He-Man, since he says that he's gonna wait for the planets to align so he can be at full power and then kill He-Man again. So he roughs her up a bit and demands to know who she thinks she is. Well, she's supposed to be the sorceress, and she's supposed to have power over him, but I don't think they know how this works. Evil-Lyn reminds him that he can actually just kill the king from here with his power, and then Adam will come crawling to him begging to spare his mother's life. She's not wrong, but Skeletor just calls her a gutter rat and goes back to looking through the cosmic window. He doesn't even give her a reason why he wouldn't do that. It's like they know this is stupid and can't think of an actual reason why he wouldn't do that, so he just ignores it. Lyn runs off so she can break down in private, but Beastman shows up to try to comfort her and also convince her to leave Skeletor. Lyn actually opens up to him, admitting that she wrote him off before but now realizes that he's the closest thing she's had to a friend, telling him her backstory, and we get an abridged version of what we were told in the comics. In the comics, she was a slave girl, and when she was 5 years old, her owners decided to eat her. I have no idea why they thought bringing cannibalism into Masters of the Universe was a good idea, but here we are. And for some reason in the show, they decided to change her from being a slave to these being her actual parents, which makes the whole thing even goofier. They have this crazy-eyed expression, and they chase her around with forks and knives. They never showed their faces in the comic, which I think was for the best, because look at that, it's ridiculous. Anyway, Lyn escapes to the sewers, but it implies that she survived on her own, cutting Magistra out of the story, which I guess is for the best, because in the comics she kills her, and it's just such a betrayal, but they don't really address it that much. She raised her since she was 5 years old, and provided for her when she was stuck in the sewer, but she just kills her and goes off with Skeletor. But then she doesn't kill the people who were trying to eat her, which is ironic, because the whole reason why she killed Magistra was because she told her not to kill the people who tried to eat her. She couldn't have at least finished the job before leaving the planet. I'm just saying, Magistra deserved better. 20 years pass and Lyn is now a petty thief. She gets cornered by some of the guys she robbed, and things don't look good, but suddenly Skeletor pops in from a portal and saves her. She claims that she hates him, but she owes him her life. But Beastman says that he believes that he owns her, and she needs to leave him or he'll kill her one day, but she says that she has to free them all from him. So she finally decides to do something about Skeletor. I don't understand why they would talk about Evil-Lyn's backstory and not Skeletor's. He's totally one-dimensional in the show, but the comic gave him an actual motivation beyond just wanting to kill He-Man. He wanted to use the magic of Grayskull to bring back his dead wife after he was able to resurrect his daughter, assuming the story that he told was true. Evil-Lyn questions its authenticity, but at the end of the comic it implies that it is true, so maybe here they could have actually confirmed it. He finally gets all the power, but instead of bringing back his dead wife, he just goes after He-Man more. Or he does bring her back and then goes after Hordak for revenge, and he can go after the royal family too, because right now he's very one note, and we already did the Skeletor finally kills He-Man thing. They seem really proud of the whole emancipation thing they're doing with Evil-Lyn, but it took away their already interesting dynamic. Not to mention they turned Beastman into a total simp. I just don't think this worked the way they were hoping it would. Then we get another scene of Adam and Teela talking. This entire episode is just characters talking and not doing anything, but they have another conversation where they talk about how the secrets of Grayskull ended up hurting them and causing problems and driving a wedge between everybody. Teela admits that he didn't mean to hurt anybody, but they still hurt. I feel like we've already had this conversation, so it would have been been nice if they had used this screen time to do something instead of just talking again. But they also talk about how Tila is the daughter of the sorceress, and Adam again apologizes for not telling her before, but she says that a part of her might have already known, and she could have told her herself. It's better that they're talking instead of her just being all grumpy like usual, but it would have been nice if they had done more setup for this. She doesn't say anything about her anti-magic beliefs that were so important to her in the first 5 episodes. Why did they spend so much time on that if they were just gonna drop it? Meanwhile, at Castle Grayskull, Evil-Lyn goes back to Skeletor, pretending that she wants to spend the night with him, but she's actually gonna seduce him to get the sword away from him, which is probably unnecessary since she's supposed to be the sorceress, which means she should have the power to take it away from him anyway, which is something that has been pointed out in the show a few times, but I guess they thought it was hot. I don't see another explanation. She says he has to power down or else he might kill her, and he's such a simp he can't see what's happening. So he does, and this is the only kiss we get in this series. Duncan and Tila not can't kiss, but they do? Thanks for nothing. Then she steals the sword while he's distracted, and uses it, so now there is no sorceress. Not even a fake sorceress. She basically stepped down in power. The whole system is busted. Also, she gets this outfit, which I personally don't feel is very Evil-Lyn, but that's kind of the least of all the problems here. Skeletor runs away like the coward he is, leaving Evil-Lyn with Grayskull and the Power Sword. Evil-Lyn appears in the clouds, projecting herself not only over Eternia but Preternia too. She goes on and on about how nothing matters, and also insulting everybody, claiming that in order to give their lives meaning, they strive for reward in Preternia, so they can live alongside their heroes forever. But Mossman said that Preternia was only available to those who defended Grayskull specifically, and normal people just become plant food. Does the rest of the world not know this? Normal people don't go to Preternia. I guess it doesn't matter in the end, because Evil-Lyn decides to destroy Preternia in front of everybody, wiping it off the face of existence, claiming that she's freeing everyone from the shackles of spirituality. It's like killing off He-Man wasn't enough for the writers. They had to dump on the entire series by forcing us to watch all of the heroes die. Lyn finishes up her speech by saying life is meaningless and we'll all return to chaos. So basically, I just destroyed your reason to live. You're welcome. How truly empowering. Frankly, I don't understand how she can go on a journey across the afterlife and then look into the universe and see that it's full of planets that have life on them, only to decide that there's only power and chaos and nothing matters. She just comes off as a nihilistic edgelord. The royal family tries to process what happened. They speculate that Evil-Lyn must have killed Skeletor, but now she's too powerful for their weapons, so Tila says that they have to fight a sorceress with a sorceress, basically confirming that Evil-Lyn is now the sorceress and the champion at the same time, which makes absolutely no sense, but whatever I guess. Tila suggests she uses magic to send a psychic message across the planet, asking for help. Adam says it's a good idea because they can use all the help they can get, from anywhere, and that's when Skeletor comes knocking on their door. I guess it's supposed to be ironic, but that's where the episode ends. So much of this episode was characters standing around and talking, and some of it felt redundant. It made it feel like a lot of this episode was wasted, and the things that did happen this episode were really stupid. The team behind the show was really proud of what they did with Evil-Lyn, and this is what we get? They break the lore of the series so they can pretend to have a female empowerment moment for Evil-Lyn, even though she was never love-stricken with Skeletor, and he's not the one who gave her her power either. It's funny how back in that episode of Comic Book Men, when they were discussing Masters of the Universe, they didn't even know that there were any female characters in this franchise.
Conan was cool. He killed people, he battled people, he got the women.
That's what it comes down to for you. Like, Conan got the women. He-Man didn't get the women.
Yeah, in fact, I don't remember a lot of women in He-Man.
Wasn't his
She-Ra.
Yeah, it's like She-Ra.
Okay, one woman. I mean, there wasn't
That was his sister, too. Which is kind of
Was it really?
Was it really?
And then when they do find out there are prominent female characters, they decide that they must be subservient to the male characters, and they have to write storylines where they're rescued. And then they randomly have her destroy Heaven, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Of course, she destroys Preternia, but leaves Subternia intact. Not to mention, she went through a whole adventure through the afterlife. But that was all pretty pointless. This series is such an edgy mess. But that's just our opinion. What do you guys think? We'd love to hear from you, so leave leave your comments down below. Thanks for watching, we really appreciate it. Before we go, we'd like to give a shout out to our members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, Hunter Rose, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Sandy Martin, Verdant Range, Butcher7 Actual, Dash Hound, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Eric Griffin, Phantom of the Night, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Shrike Z, and Bandito Bane. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more content from us. That helps us out a lot too, and it's free. We also have a Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.